What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the King's Court. So today we're going to talk about the Take It Down Act, or more notably called the Tools to Address Known Exploitation of Immobilizing Technological Deepfakes on Websites and Networks Act. Quite the mouthful. That's why these things get nicknames. So how does this, the big question everyone's asking is, what does this mean? How does this relate to parody? How does this relate to the crazy fakes that we see going throughout Twitter, that we see people in things like Geeks and Gamers with Jay and all that? How does this relate to that? So I'm going to speak from a kind of a 30,000 foot view and then give some ideas and opinions about how this is going to affect parody, how it's going to affect most people. You know, most people are not going to, in my opinion, are not going to be affected by this. Most people don't use deep fakes or AI technology to do the things that are going to be criminalized under the Take It Down Act. So the key provisions of this act are the criminalization of NCII, which is non-consensual intimate imagery. The best example of this is, if everyone remembers, I think it was about 2 years ago, all the gross images of Taylor Swift that was going around. Actually, might have been earlier this year. Those are things that would fall under this act. The act makes it a federal crime to knowingly publish or threaten to publish this kind of stuff. It includes real and AI-generated images. Now, one of the big things that this was created for was actually an issue that came out in Texas, I believe, where these kids were basically being bullied because people were making fake revenge porn for these different girls in class, and they were just being completely bullied about this. So that's like the linchpin in this. This is what started. It's the cornerstone of this act. Penalties include up to 2 years imprisonment with harsher punishes for cases involving minors. Good. The responsibilities of the platforms, like basically anything on the internet, obviously Twitter, Facebook, these are all platforms that will have to abide by this law. They must remove NCII, again, non-consensual intimate imagery, within 48 hours of a verified victim request, and make reasonable efforts to delete the identical copies. So we all know that, you know, once something's out there on the internet, it's out there, it's gone. You're never going to be able to claw it all back. This requires, you know, let's say someone takes a image of a 14-year-old classmate, deep fakes it, and puts it out there on Facebook. This requires Facebook, as long as that 14-year-old classmate, and this might, you know, I'm definitely going to have to do more digging on this. This might extend to the parents of that 14-year-old classmate, but they will have to submit a verified victim request to Facebook, and Facebook is required to remove, let's say John posted it. You know, it's going to be required to go to John's account, remove that image. And then it's also going to be required to look across all of Facebook for that image again and do what they can to remove any instance of that image. Within the next year, every platform, whether it's, you know, and I don't know how they're defining platform. My assumption would be that it's going to be, you know, social media platforms, different internet platforms, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, all these people. They have 1 year to establish a protocol to remove this stuff. Now, one thing I do kind of want to talk about is, how does this affect our digital rights? So this is kind of in the same thread of, how does this affect parody? And to be brutally honest, we don't know yet. We're not really going to know where that line is. Now, it does say basically sexually explicit images. So as long as your deep fake of, Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers isn't sexually explicit, then you should be fine. But we're not really going to know that until that line is drawn by the courts. They could decide that as long as the victim does not make the request, and they could decide that the victim has to be the one to do it. They might say parents don't get to do this; it has to be the victim. So, how's that affect, the 13-year-olds that don't have a Facebook account and their deep fake gets put out there, so they have to make a Facebook account in order to do the request? There's a lot of if, ands, or buts that are going to come up in this. But in regards to parody, I think that the best yardstick on this is going to be what the image dictates. As long as the image just dictates parody, it just, say you take this person's face and throw it on the face of someone from on a poster, a Star Wars character or something like that. As long as you do that kind of thing, I think you're fine. Now, if you start using shirtless photos, if you start using topless or bottomless photos, things like that, if you start taking images and putting them on a picture of someone with a bikini, like this sort of thing starts blurring that line of sexually explicit imagery. And this is the kind of thing that the courts are going to have to decide is where's that line? Because I don't think we're going to see that line go all the way towards any sort of parody. They can't. Parody is protected by the Copyright Act. It's protected by about 250 years of Supreme Court precedent. There is a lot. It's protected by the First Amendment. There's a lot that protects copyright, and this single law is not going to be able to remove. There's a lot that protects parody, but this single law is not going to be able to remove parody. But the question is going to come down to where is that line going to be drawn? Personally, like I said, I think it's going to get drawn to basically as long as your intent is not to create sexually explicit imagery, I think you're going to be fine. And again, it requires that the victim be the one to submit the request. So if you've got, if you take a picture of, again, Jay and throw it on, a pirate from what was that pirate show called? Let's go with Black Sails. Then you're probably fine. Jay's not going to claim victimhood on that. But if you take it and throw it on a naked person, well, that violates this act, and Jay's 100% entitled to have it removed. So that's what this is looking like it's going to be. So I hope everyone enjoyed that. I'm definitely planning on going into this further. This is a very detailed law that, again, this is really going to come down to how the Supreme Court and other federal courts draw that line. This is definitely going to be something to keep track of, and it'll be interesting when we finally get those first court cases that really detail where that line is going to be drawn. Everyone, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoy it. Don't forget to like, subscribe. I'll see everyone later.